Welcome. I'm Lisa Bonnies, and my guest today is fourth generation intuitive and expert in medical intuition and mediumship, Tina Zion. Tina Zion is an award winning author with a list of books on medical intuition and Reiki, and her latest book is the long awaited Healing Ghosts, Haunted Places, and Non Human Beings Training Manual to be a Supernatural Multidimensional Medium and Healer. We're going to talk about all that and more. So good to see you, Tina. It's been far too long. Welcome.
A long time this time, so I'm just tickled to meet with you and to speak about whatever direction you want to go. I'm good with it.
Exactly. Yes, there are so many directions we can go, and probably will. And I want to
Maybe.
talk
Hope
about
so.
your. I want to talk about your intriguing new book. You know that I've been waiting for years for you to write this. But first, I'd love to dive into your story because, well, one of the things I love about you and your work is that you're so matter of fact. There's nothing spooky or woo woo
Oh,
about what has been seen as spooky and woo woo subjects, right? So, like many others, mediumship just came naturally to you, and your work in the field is so common sense. So, if you would, let's validate the experiences of others that they may be having and tell us how you came into this work.
hmm. Wow. Well, I grew up in a family that expected everyone to be aware of the deceased, expected everyone to be aware of the non-physical realm. So I always tell people, I don't have any gifts. I don't have this isn't a gift. It's a very, very natural awareness. And what my family gave to me, and believe me, we were not a healthy family, emotionally and things like that. There was all kinds of stuff going on, but we were all expected to perceive and interact and talk to any deceased people that came to us. And so I grew up with it being natural. And, that's not a gift. That's just growing up into a lovely awareness. And it was matter of fact. And maybe that's why I'm kind of matter of fact about it now, because one of my main goals is I want to take the fear out of this for people and to help them notice how to be more in charge of what's going on around them and things like that.
Yeah, yeah. I really love that you talk and write about not being afraid of non-physical beings. And I find this refreshing because as I mentioned, we've all been taught by horror movies and scary books that the non-physical is terrifying. And you grew up with a different view of this. When you're working
Mhm.
with people, are you finding that this is a common block?
Oh, I'm finding, in fact, I'm so touched by it when people come to my courses and things like that for this. They're terrified. They're afraid to sign up for the course because of what will happen. And so I really emphasize to people, there's no reason to be afraid. They will do what you tell them to do, them being deceased people. They'll just do what you tell them to do for some reason. And to take the fear out of that and to be more in charge of what's going on around you. So be more aware. And I really think I only teach people how to notice the very, very subtle. Because so much of the non-physical realm is very quite subtle. And so I want them to notice it, be more in charge of it, and to take absolutely all fear away. And I've been dealing with deceased people since I can remember. I can remember back around 5 years old. And, I'm up there in age and I'm still here, and there's really nothing to be afraid of. But you do have to be in charge.
Yeah, a lot of places we can go with that. First, let's talk about the being in charge because I think that comes as a surprise to many people that you get to call the shots here. They aren't taking over, they aren't in control of you. You get to say whether they stay or go. Can we talk about
Yes.
that just a bit?
Yes. I'd love to talk about that. And not very many people ask me to talk about that too. So I love it already that you have gone that direction. That to be in control, you just have to. say what you truly want and need to say to them, either in your mind or out loud. It's basically the same with the non-physical realm. And you have to mean it though when you say it. You have to feel how powerful you are, and you have to really mean the words, not say them in terror, but say them and because you're the boss, and they will do it. It's easy as someone's hanging around in your kitchen and they don't feel positive, and you can just say, "Now you back off now, and I will talk to you at noon during my break." And they'll do it. And sometimes I'll wake up, I'll tell you this too. Sometimes I wake up at night and I'll hear a bunch of whispering out in the kitchen. And instead of being terrified, you can hear whispers from different people. Instead of being terrified, I'll just think it out to them, and rooms away, and I'll just say, everybody's got to be quiet. You're waking me up. I have to have sleep. I'll talk to you in the morning. And they get quiet. It's as simple as that. It really is.
It's funny, as you're talking, it's dawning on me that this is basic metaphysics and manifestation, that we're the creator of our experience, so therefore we are also the creator of what we're allowing in and out. So this is really just sort of an extension of our basic abilities as spiritual beings in human suits. Is that accurate?
And what'd you say? Human suits?
Yeah.
I love that. Okay, in human suits. Yes, absolutely. And do you see how, if you really recognize, and all the listeners truly recognize, oh, wait a minute, maybe I am in charge of the non-physical realms around me and beings around me. Maybe there really isn't any reason to be afraid. They will actually do what you tell them to do. You have to be very, very, very careful with your words. If you say, now you get out of my house. Well, they'll get out of your house because you told them to, but you didn't tell them that they can't come back into your house. So see, you have to be really, really careful with your words, and because every word is an electrical signal to them and to the world, really, everybody.
Right, right. So let's rewind just a bit with that in mind. I know that I know many people who have said that they will see a dead person. They'll wake up and there'll be somebody standing at the side of their bed, and
Yes.
and this scares the bejesus out of them. And so they go, ah, go away. And then it will never happen again because they're so terrified of seeing. So maybe they'll now sense, they'll hear, they'll
Mm.
feel a presence, etc. If somebody has been spooked by spooks and they would like to see them again, is there a way to bring back that ability?
Oh, yes, and some people, that's the most interesting question anyone's ever asked me. Some people have said, oh, I saw something, when I was 12 years old, and it terrified me and I blocked it off. Well, and I've never seen anything again. That's what many times people say. The age might be different, but many people will say that. And that, in fact, if you take it to the next step, for you to block it off means you're in charge. So you can unblock it because you're in charge. So you can unblock it, but now you're the boss, and you can direct who can come in, who can't come in, what you want to do with the deceased, that kind of thing. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, thank you for that. That makes perfect sense. So then, if you don't mind, let's stay in the scary realm for a few minutes, just because it's so
No, please.
well, it's so common. I mean, there's TV shows, there's ghost hunting TV shows, and there's one I'm thinking, I can't remember the name, but where they go into houses where people are having, terrifying disturbances, and they'll say, "Oh, well, there's ghosts who want to kill you and your children," and they really do go out of their way to make it frightening. And I'm aware that, some
Yes.
of this is just for entertainment purposes, but for those who've been watching these shows and feel like they cannot handle this because they're too afraid. Um, let's talk about bringing in somebody to, heal your house, to clear away this kind of thing. Is this something that you're familiar with?
Oh, yes, very much so. But to back up, these shows, I have watched some of them just to see what's going on, and they're throwing out the word demon and things like that as well to make it even more scary. And I'm sitting there watching the TV, and I see a little old lady who's throwing things around because she's mad that there's strange people in her house, and that they've bought her house and they're carrying out walls, for an open floor plan, and she's mad. And they're calling her, oh, it's a demon and all that stuff. So, they're really helping. I guess maybe it gets higher ratings too if you terrify people. And so, yeah, that is kind of training people too to be afraid. I don't know if I answered your question though, but it's like training people to be afraid and not, they're not uh, horrible demons.
So let's talk then about how, because part of your new book is about working with confused, even hateful, needy. There's all kinds of. They have personalities just like we do. So
Yes, yes.
how? So let's talk about that. Working with, if you are in your house and you want to clear this away, or you want to make friends, how does this work?
Well, I'm really big on really helping people to realize that most mediums just are become the translator. They'll be with a living person and they will say, well, your deceased person is saying this and is saying that. And what I really want people to realize is these these deceased people and even the non-human beings, they're struggling, and so that's why I'm actually training mediums all over the place to become the healers. And so we're healing the living person who's involved with whatever's going on, and we're bringing a healing to the troubled deceased too. So I want to take mediumship into more than just translating and sharing with the living what the deceased are saying. I want some positive changes for everybody, especially like a house in your example here, a house that somebody thinks is full of demons, and really it's just a very angry little old deceased woman.
Right. Now, you mentioned deceased people and non-human beings. What are the difference?
Yes. Well, think about non-human beings do exist too, and I love to help people take the fear away from that. Also, I love this. I love it. But let's start out with positive non-human beings. A lot of people know about fairies. They believe in fairies. They have even witnessed something like that, fairies, or they've seen a leprechaun when they were in Ireland or something like this, that not all non-physical beings are dead people, that some of them really are non-physical beings just as alive as what we are. And so I really want to help people take the fear of that away. But just like human beings, some of the non-physical beings are nasty and grumpy and want to, mess people up and that kind of thing. Well, they will do what you tell them to do too. And they need a healing also. And so it's really no difference. That's why I struggled to think, well, should I include the non-humans in this? And I thought, no, I need to because I know for a fact I don't know how many, but over and over and over again, a very troubled non-human being. Um, there's one that comes to mind. This one woman wouldn't go into her grocery store, and she lived in a smaller town that, that was the grocery store, because every time she walked in, she saw some big being back there in the back corner. She even says back in the left corner, who looked like a giant troll. He was as tall as the ceiling and things like that. And so she couldn't go shopping, and she became more and more and more afraid. And so I hope this is a good example. So we just worked with that being and talked to him, figured out why he's hanging out in the grocery store, number one, what his needs are, why he's such a mess. And we called in specialists for him and helped. And I didn't do it for her. We did it together because I always want to teach people how to do this. And so she can go into the grocery store now, and he's not come back. It's just simple things like that. It's like going through intersections where there's been a lot of automobile wrecks, and a lot of times the deceased will remain there. And a lot of things that keep one of the things that keeps deceased people from crossing over into the light is emotions and trauma. A lot of times that is the cause of, them hanging around.
I've had experience with that. I believe we've probably talked
Yeah.
about this in the past, where my some of my ancestors were killed in a coal mine disaster. And when I went to
Yes.
visit the cemetery where many of the men were buried, my daughter and I were there, and we realized that many of these miners felt that they were trapped in hell because they had died
Yes.
in a fire explosion, and it was sort of this loop that they were just, it was a perpetual loop where they just couldn't break out of it. Is that the kind of thing that you're talking about with intersections, et cetera?
Yes, that's a very dramatic story, but it was very true. And I hope your listeners realize that you have the most stunning book about that, that I couldn't put it down. And you are truly a writer. I always tell everybody I'm not a writer. I just write down what I know and what works. But you're a writer. So, but yes, that's exactly. And see, they think they're in hell, or in your example, or or they don't know what is, or they feel like they're on fire all the time, or whatever the situation is. And that's why I thought, wait a minute, I didn't even realize I was doing this for years, and I realized one day because my guides finally got through, and they said, "You're healing deceased. You're not just helping your living clients." And I go, oh, yeah, you're right. And see, we're healing. We're helping the deceased heal too.
Yeah. And if you don't mind, I would love to really sort of dig a little deeper into this specific topic, because there are many mediums who, are very well respected. I love their work, etc., but they would disagree is probably not the right word, but they sort of discount the idea that anyone who has crossed the veil, as it were, is not, immediately moved into the love and light plane. They might say that yes, they need to do some work on the other side, but trapped between the worlds. Do you mind if
Oh,
we talk about that a bit?
yes, no, I'd love to. But tell me what's your question about that? Because I could go kind of different
Well, I guess
directions.
that just that it happens, that this isn't just sci-fi, fantasy, scary movie stuff. This actually is a situation where people, human beings, can become trapped between this world and
Yes.
crossing the veil. I don't even know what to call the sparkly realm, if that makes.
The sparkly room. I kind of like that. That's kind of neat. Well, yeah, it's just like, it's just like when we're here in the living in this physical world, we get confused. We don't understand what's going on. We have all kinds of emotions because this happened and that happened and things like that. It's the same with the deceased, that they just keep, especially in trauma situations, a lot of emotion situations, they just get kind of caught up in, and we do this in the living too. If something bad happens, we just go over it and over it and over it and over it in our head. Well, it's the same with the deceased too. And they tend not, I don't see that anybody is really officially trapped. But I do see them coming and going, and they're definitely not going into that light and love place, or what most people call going, crossing over into the light and things like that. Well, there is I don't know if it's a place, but there is an awareness level that keeps them from moving or what's the word I want, even processing their trauma. And so, yes, they're kind of sort of here on Earth, but they're not in a place where they can start advancing again. They're caught up in the trauma.
Mhm. So then how, in your view, does their being sort of caught up in this trauma, how does that affect the living who are, ancestors or descendants of that trauma?
Yes. Well, that's interesting because through our ancestors, many people feel that our ancestors are our guides and things like that. And I have not found that to be true. What I've found is our ancestors tend to be our physical lineage, for our DNA, our body structure, that kind of thing. But they're not, but I always bring up my grandmother, Marie, and she's with, and I'm kind of pointing at her, she's with me all the time, but comes and goes. And she is um, not a guide though. She just we love each other and we hang out together and things like that. But I would never ask her to be a guide for any of my clients because the true guides is a whole nother layer of awareness and layer of abilities and things like that. So so people, mostly a lot of trauma, and they'll either stay right there in that location or they'll hang around and come back and forth. They'll be lost, things like that. But I haven't ever seen anybody like in a jail, like in an entrapment. That I have not noticed that at least. But you brought up other mediums. A lot of mediums um, do not recognize that there's any negativity going on, that there's not any negativity with deceased people, there's not any negativity with non-human beings, but that's just, I have to teach and write about what I have perceived and what works and what doesn't work because I've been noticing this for 40, 50 years now. And I have to acknowledge it because I've been aware of it.
Mhm. All right. Now we were talking about guides, and I let's shift gears a little bit because one of the things I learned from you that has really been life-changing for me is that there's a difference between the ancestors, our personal family ghosts, our loved ones who are, in the room with us right now, and the divine and sacred guides. There really is a differentiation. Would you mind explaining that?
Thank you for bringing that up. Well, I could use my grandma Marie again, that she is just the dearest, dearest, very short, um, being in my life, living and still in the deceased. But uh, she is not a guide. And like most people call their ancestors, they think are guides. Well, our ancestors are really just deceased people. When like if I tell everybody, if I fall over dead tonight, I'm not going to be a guide, and I'm pretty good at this stuff apparently. But I'm not going to be a guide. I'm going to be a dead person. And so, what I have noticed that well, here's how it happened. The two words divine and sacred just were bombarding me 24 hours a day. I'd wake up in the night and I'd hear divine and sacred, sacred and divine, divine and sacred. And I finally go, what, and sorted that out. And that they were telling me it was time for me to work with a higher level of guides. And what I tell you and your listeners here is that the non-physical world is much more complicated than the physical world. It is much more complicated. And so there are guides at different levels. And some are actually in training. Sometimes I'll see my divine sacreds and I'll see a real quiet, kind of angel type being behind them. And I'll ask, who is that? And they'll say, Well, it's somebody in training. So I thought that's pretty cool. And so when I started working only with the Divine Sacred Guides, I'm telling you, my world went and things opened up and people became more well and I was aware of more beings to help and all kinds of things. Yeah, so it made a massive difference massive difference in my life. And so, and it sounds like it was positive for you too.
Yeah, exactly. That's why I wanted to make sure to bring this up because you do actually cover this in the new book as well about developing your team of specialty
Yes,
guides.
yes, yes.
So
Yeah.
how do we begin that? I mean, obviously people buy the book and read it, but just a little taste of how do we begin that process?
You would begin, and each listener, and you are different from me, and I'm different from you, and everyone's listening is different. That what is the main thing I would ask everyone uh, to identify the main thing that you are struggling with? Well, that could be, different for everybody. Well, then invite in and be in charge a divine and sacred guide who specializes in working with me, name yourself, for this situation, this problem, this trouble. So see, I'm being very careful with my words, so I'm glad this is recorded. Um, and and then I always give them a little interview because a lot of times the more shiftier, um, not positive beings will try to pretend like they're divine sacred. So, so you make sure you can be the boss, make sure they're divine sacred. And then now here's the cool thing. You have to tell them though every day and multiple times a day exactly what you want them to do. And so just yesterday I was asking my guides, well, how many do I have just for me? I have um over 100 now, but but they have come in to help me with clients and help me teach classes and things like that. But just for me, I just asked them that just yesterday. I'm just thinking about this, and they said six. I mean, just clear as a bell. Six. There's six of them.
Hmm, okay. So I want to go back to what you were saying, where you sort of interview them. And I do
Yes.
remember learning this from you, that it always reminds me of, those old TV shows where you have to tell me, are you a cop? That kind of thing. So it's sort of like that, isn't it? Where you can ask them,
Absolutely.
are you within the divine realm? And
Truly.
they
I
have
would
to.
say truly. Yes, I know. See, and it's real. And if they're not divine and sacred, they will either not answer you and be quiet, or they will start jabbering away and try to distract you. And sometimes, I guess there's a third thing that I've noticed, they'll turn and just fade away if they're not divine and sacred.
Okay. So if they
Mm.
are divine and sacred, do you personally feel a different? I do. I just wonder if that's how you
Yes.
perceive them.
What, the feel of them? Is that what
Yeah,
you
that you
said?
can feel a difference between the divine and like, for example, when I mean, we've worked together in shift network courses, and during one of those courses, when I was working on this, I was having physical issues, and I was asking for a divine and sacred guide that specializes in helping my body to, be as tuned up and as healthy as it can.
See?
And
Exact focus, yes.
yes, yes. And so what I was shown a specific gesture to do, which will bring me into a different vibration where I am in connection with them. It's a group. They told me to call them ultra doc. They're my doctor, but they're an ultra doctor. So they're sort
That's
of
cool.
this group of fun beings who really are tuned into what my body can uh, be at its highest tune. So
Yes.
that's how I'm saying I can feel the difference, because if I'm not tuned in, I just feel like myself. But when I bother to do this gesture and connect with them, I feel so lit up and so expanded. Is that typical, or is that just my way of seeing this?
No, that's the way it is. That is the way it is because we can. The thing is the divine and sacred will not just jump in and save us because they're in this profound, deep honor of our human choice. See, we have choices every split second of the day. And so they're in profound honor of that. They won't just jump in and save us. We have to tell them exactly what we want them to do, for our bodies or our life or finances or anything.
Mhm, mhm. Right.
Yeah.
Another thing that I really appreciate in your teachings is that many people ask, how do I know if this is genuinely intuition or is this just my imagination? Talk about that if you
Mhm.
would.
Mm. Well, we're dealing with non-physical. It's not solid like our coffee cups. It's not solid like the desk that I'm sitting at. It's non-physical realms. So it's never going to feel solid, I guess is how I would say. It's never going to feel it. But I think I really just teach people how to notice the very subtle. So very subtly notice, does this being feel positive to you? Does the being feel heavy or dark or or real glowy and bright? It's really simply notice it and start to trust yourself more. Don't trust themselves. They'll get something over and over and over and over again. And they say, well, I just think I'm making it up. Well, all of this is, well, this is probably the most important thing I can say in this whole time together is it will always forever feel like your imagination because it's non-physical. We're not going to see it in a physical form. We can perceive them in a form, but it's not, like you and I are sitting here looking at each other. But yes, you will be able to tell. But it will never stop feeling like your imagination. Never, ever. So I tell people just get over it. Just get over it. Get over it.
Yeah. Yeah, one of the ways that I look at that is, say you're doing a past life regression, which, by the way, you are certified in. If you do a past life regression and you come up with this storyline, this amazing thing happened, or this the scary thing, or whatever, this thing happened, and then you come back from the regression and you go, okay, I was making that up. My view on that is that whether you're making it up or not is irrelevant. The fact is, this is the story that came to you. So, whether it was perfectly factual or whether it's just a demonstration of this was the vibe, this is what it felt like, and this is what it feels like to you now, what are you going to do with it? Is that
Yes.
how you see it?
Yes, because even if there might be some details of it that aren't, didn't happen or something like you're saying, you are still perceiving the story. You are still, because everything's energy. There is still a truth in that energetically that is affecting you in a negative way or a positive way. Don't get caught up in that at all. Just receive it and learn from whatever it is you received. Just learn from it.
Mhm. Yeah. Okay. Thank you. I've always wondered about that. So now I wanted to ask you, this podcast, the Now podcast, is it's all about stepping into our power now, because we're at this powerful transition point. Humanity finds itself at sort of this turning point where we got to make a choice, and we can really make a difference in humanity's future if we make the right choices. And by right, I mean, expanded, loving, being connected with your highest self, etc. How do you see this playing out in your own life?
Boy, that's a big question. The trend, I agree with you. We're in a tremendous transition time, transformation time, and I keep getting from my guides that only the people who are supposed to learn that way will be negatively affected. But the masses of people will not be negatively affected, and that there's going to be a positive outcome. And, that'll be more positive for everybody because, there's this side and that side, and this one's against this one, and things like that. But it's all about, no matter what's going on, it's all about a tremendous moment of learning something very, very important about us as an individual, no matter what happens in our lives, in our personal lives, what happened this morning. It's all about learning something. Like I was in a place this morning with a lot of people and things like that, and all kinds of things was going on. And I just stood there and thought, okay, now what am I learning about myself in that situation? And that's really what life's all about is what are we going to do with it? What are we going to receive and what are we going to learn about it? Special learning. My guides talk to me constantly about learning, 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 and advancing. That will lead to our advancement in the physical and the non-physical.
Yeah. Well, what's coming to mind as an example was during the pandemic, which is, one of the most horrific things humankind has experienced in our lifetimes anyway, because it affected everyone globally. But while we were all on lockdown, the world sort of started healing itself. The animals started coming out and pollution started fading
Yes.
back. So we were able to see in the midst of this horror show that there really is something good that can come out of this. And again, that was a few years ago, and now we're in, a completely different thing. Again, politics aside, there's no denying that we're in a global shift right now.
Yes,
And
yes.
yeah, so what are you seeing in today's world that's similar to the what we saw during the pandemic, the good that came out of the pandemic? What kind of good are you seeing coming out of this craziness that we're
Oh,
in right now?
that's interesting. That is interesting. I think it's really stimulating people to look deep inside their hearts and their souls to see and really feel what is right to them and to really know what makes them tick and what doesn't feel right, especially all the things that doesn't feel right to people right now. Well, are even to learn about ourselves from that. And I've noticed even with the COVID, I started Zooming with people. I thought, I'm low tech, and I thought, oh well, how am I going to see my clients? Because I don't see individuals anymore now because I'm so busy teaching and stuff. But when that COVID was going on, and what happened is, I think this is a good example. I think that Zoom has opened up the world for my mentoring students too. Because it was a simple example. One woman told me, she says, well, I can't become a medical intuitive because I live out way out in the country and I'm surrounded with cornfields. And I said, well, what's the name of the town or the city that is in your address? I'm out in the country too, but I still have an address. And she told me the name of the city. And I said, I have two other clients in that area that are mentoring students. And she goes, what? So do you see that just opened up her whole world because she thought she was trapped in a cornfield, surrounded by a cornfield. And it just opened up her world. So I think our world is opening up, that we're getting much more knowledgeable about what's going on all around us. I don't know, that was a long answer, but
Well,
that's
it
what
was
was
a deep
coming through.
question. No, I think it was an excellent answer. And again, it's a deep question that I think we're all kind of exploring, like who am I going to be in our future? So
But
yeah, thank you.
see, it stimulated exploring. See, you said it in a beautiful way. and we're thinking more and we're exploring more and we're examining, well, what's right for me in my life? What's not okay in life? Something's right because I'm covered with goosebumps, just bam, just all of a sudden I'm covered with goosebumps. That must have been pretty okay to say.
Perfect, perfect, wonderful. So I want to make sure, because we're coming close to the end of our time together, that we talk about your website because there's a lot of really interesting stuff there. It's tinazion.com. Let's talk about what people will find there if they visit you.
Goodness. Well, I'm really starting in because of the date that we're in here now. I'm starting in on doing traveling so that I can do live in person. I know I do a lot of Zoom stuff, but I'd love to be live in person for courses. And so I have quite a few courses coming up. There's one in October that's still not on my website right now at this time, and traveling to other countries to teach. So they'll find that. I hope you find information about all kinds of things and things that you're wondering about. And I have my blogs on there, and I always want to teach, I guess. I just can't stop, I guess. And so there's a lot of things on there just to learn and hopefully take the fear away.
Right, perfect. That's wonderful. And your new book, Healing Ghosts, Haunted Places, and Non-Human Beings, is available for pre-order now. It will be published in October, did you say?
Yeah, it's supposed to come out then in print October 14th. This is 2025. But right now it's a pre-order that you can get ordered in.
Oh,
Yeah.
I didn't realize it was October 14th. That date is very meaningful to me. So, wow.
Right. Interesting.
Perfect.
Okay. Now,
Yeah.
see, right now we're having a moment here of something that really touched with you, and so you just got a signal that had really nothing to do with me, but a signal just came through to you.
Yeah, yeah,
That's
it
how it
was
works. I want people to start noticing the very
yeah.
subtle.
Yeah, that
Yeah.
was the birthday of a very dear,
Mm.
dear person to me who is on the other side. So the fact that this book is about this subject, I think, is a little interesting, don't you?
Uh-huh. Very much so. So check that out. Look
Yeah,
around in your environment. Notice whatever
absolutely.
you notice.
Yeah. All
Yeah.
right. Well, gosh, is there anything that we've left out that you want to make sure that we discuss?
Oh my. Um, no, I can't think of anything except that please really hear the words that there's no need to be afraid. You are in charge and they will do what you tell them to do, but you have to mean it. There's no reason to be afraid. We're part of the whole.
Beautiful, beautiful. Thank you so much. Once again, I've been talking with medical intuitive and psychic medium, Tina Zion. Thank you for being with us today. And thank you, Tina, for being with us.
Oh, thank you. My goodness, thank you.
Thanks for listening. Check out Castle Gate, a novel based on my own ancestral healing journey at lisabonis.com. In 1921, four men set off from Scotland to the United States. Will Garrock, his brother Pete, his son Willie, and his nephew Thomas, all coal miners. They left behind the miners' rows and the nationwide mining strike with its soup kitchens. Their destination was Castlegate, Utah, where they had kin to welcome them before sending for their wives and children. They prospered in America, working in one of the finest mines in Utah. Until that tragic day, March 8th, 1924. Disaster struck. 3 explosions trapping 171 men inside. Rescue crews worked tirelessly for days, but sadly, they could not save a soul. Women were widowed and children were orphaned, and some never recovered from their broken hearts. Castlegate is the true and tragic saga of a Scottish family whose dreams of finding their fortunes in the bountiful coal mines of Castlegate, Utah during the Prohibition era explode in one of the most devastating mine disasters in American history. Learn more at lisabonis.com.